All right, Jarryd Wallace, welcome to All Have Another podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, listen up, everybody. We originally rescheduled this because you had something important going on. You had to go to the White House.
Small details, not the everyday occurrence for sure, but yeah, something special they get to do with the Team USA, part of being an Olympian and a Paralympian. So it's been my fourth time to DC celebrating that, but second official time going to the White House. We had a great time. So thanks for being
Oh,
flexible.
that's so awesome. Is the experience different every time? Is it like, okay, I've done this now, or is it just as special?
Yeah, I think each games kind of has its own experience, and same thing kind of with the White House deal. A little bit older, you respect some things a little bit more. You look at things a little bit differently. Even just touring through the White House itself. The first time around, I kind of was just like, oh, like kid in a candy shop, just like wandering and not really, stopping and reading things. And you're a little bit older, you start to be interested in the history and walking through the president's library and looking at all the books that they've got in there, at the house and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely a little bit different experience.
Oh my gosh, that is so, so true. I can just imagine that now. Yes. Um, So you bronze in the long jump at the Paralympics.
Mhm.
And I'd love to hear. I think that we should start back though, so we can share your story, like how you became a Paralympian in the first place. Because I know that in high school you won state in multiple distances. So what even happened that brought you to the place that you became a Paralympian?
Yeah, so I wasn't always a long jumper. I wasn't always a Paralympian. Definitely a lot of different roads that I've traveled. So going through high school, I was an 800, 1500 meter runner. I, enjoyed the distances a little bit more. I obviously enjoyed my speed sessions, but put mileage was a big part of that. Obviously, that training and had a lot of fun throughout high school, as you mentioned. Multiple state champion and was getting recruited by multiple Division I schools, and ultimately decided to sign with the University of Georgia, which is where both of my parents went to school. My dad played tennis at Georgia. My mom was a All-American cross country runner there, and was a Canadian national champion. So that's kind of what brought her down to the university. And she met my dad, fell in love, and the rest is history, as they would say. So Georgia has always been a goal of mine. Growing up in Athens as well, it's it's just been a hometown kind of story, and so it was really exciting. Getting the offer from them and being able to accept that opportunity. And as I was kind of preparing for my collegiate career, I had been dealing with an overuse running injury for a few years, and it's the nature of the game, right? You have nagging injuries. You're trying to push boundaries, but I kind of was trying to figure out, am I injury prone, or something bigger
Mm.
going on that we're just not really aware of, and how can we kind of put me in the best position to succeed at the next level. And at the time, thankfully, we found out that I was not injury prone. It was a kind of a chronic overuse injury that I was dealing with, and there was really a simple surgical fix to get rid of it and wouldn't have to deal with it anymore. So, at 18 years old, I was like, let's do that. That sounds great. Simple 6-week recovery surgery, and I'd be back pain free, and I would never have to deal with this again. Sign me up. Let's go to college and have a great
Totally.
career. And here we go. So we went down that road, and man, unfortunately, I ended up having complications in that surgery. We ended up losing 60% of the muscle from my knee down. I spent the next 2.5 years having a total of 10 reconstructive surgeries trying to save my leg. And, it was a really crazy time in my life. Obviously, that was not on the radar. That was not the plan. I didn't get to truly enjoy my first few years of college, and everything that I kind of hoped my life would look like kind of got thrown into the wind. But looking back now, I'm really grateful for that season, and really
Wow.
grateful for the struggle, having to redefine myself. I think at that time I was really rooted. My identity was in just who I was as an athlete, and realizing there's more to life than that, and that I bring more to the table than just being an athlete, and that that there's just more. And that time that I had, although it was hard, and although I was in a lot of pain, and although I made a lot of really bad decisions, and eventually got you know I guess I just faced like the reality of if I had to make a big decision. And the decision was, am I going to continue living the rest of my life in pain? Or, am I going to consider maybe having my leg amputated? And kind of all culminated with a conversation with a doctor who looked at me and was like, hey man, like, you seem like a pretty active kid. You seem like a fun, go lucky guy. Like, what do you want your future to look like? And I was like, man, honestly, like, I haven't thought about that for a long time. So it's hard to be in chronic pain, and it's hard to not be able to do the things I love, and it's hard to not be able to be mobile and have kind of real normal goals and dreams. And he was like, well, let's take your leg off the table for for a second. Like, let's pretend that's not the reality. What would you want your life to look like? And I think, he did something really powerful and asked me that question. Is he got me dreaming again. He got me, looking at what hope could be. And he stopped me from focusing on the reality of my present situation. And he helped me begin to look at what the future could potentially look like. Knowing that there were options to kind of step out of the situation I was in. And although that option and really only option was to have my leg amputated, the fact that an amputation would allow me to be pain-free, allow me to have a normal quality of life, allow me to be able to play with my kids one day in the yard, and just get back to some level of normalcy was just, it seemed like it was the only choice. And earlier I said, I'm so grateful for that time I went through. I think the biggest reason is if day one, if amputation would have been on the table, I probably would have not handled it very well. And I probably would not have recovered very well. But going through those surgeries, going through those tough times emotionally, experiencing that pain and heartache, when amputation became like the only option, it was like a second chance at life. Like, it was like, it was such a positive thing. And it's so weird to say that, like, having your leg cut off is like a positive thing, but it really was. And I think that, if I wouldn't have had that 2.5 years of kind of trauma experience, I don't know if I would have recovered as quickly, had the goals that I had, and have accomplished the things that I've been able to accomplish.
Wow. Okay. So many like thoughts as I hear you tell this story. Cause like when you read your story, you're like, oh my gosh, like, did he have to get his leg amputated? Like, so hearing you like go through the process of what that actually looked like, making that decision. Cause it sounds like the complications of the original surgery, like, weren't likely to end up that way.
Yeah, it was just an unfortunate circumstance that kind of culminated and developed into
Yeah.
the outcome that we kind of landed in. So, that was definitely not, the expectation. And, we did everything that we could to mitigate the repercussions, but, we were where we were.
Yeah, it's like when you go into surgery, I've had multiple surgeries in my life. It's like you go in and you sign all the papers and you're like, it's going to be, like you have to sign all the papers that say, like, hey, also X, Y, and Z could happen. And you kind of just
Yeah.
like do this. You kind of
Yeah.
just like, believe and hope it'll be the best case scenario, but there's always risk when you do it. So
Totally.
I'd love to hear more about this doctor, though, because what a unique position he was in to be like to lay this out on the table for you and to say, like, hey, like, this could be a good option, and like you could have a
Yeah.
second chance to be this active human being that you so desire to be. Yeah, I don't know what the question is about him, but just maybe more about that time.
I think, when I look back at the major transitions that I've had in my life, and the various stages of those transitions and the lessons that I've learned from them, is one of the most powerful parts of every transition I've been in is the power of relationships, and who's in that journey with you. And that was not a planned relationship as far as I was concerned, right? He kind of came into the situation and was an unbiased, empathetic source of, encouragement. And he saw something even in me that I didn't see. And maybe even at the time, things that my parents didn't even see in me, because we were so close to it. And sometimes we get too close to things to be able to see effectively. And that's where relationships are so important when we're going through transitions or where we're going through trials, because it's one conversation with someone who maybe just brings in a slightly different perspective that can start to fuel the fire, start to, reignite the light that creates clarity in what's felt like a, dark and abandoned space. And so, it's just, he, Dr. William Turnipseed is just a dear friend. And, he's getting up there in the years, but we stay connected. And, he's been such a champion of my career and such a supporter. But he's one of the guys that drastically changed my life by asking a simple question.
So, and you were so young. I look back at like 18 years old, just like the way you process things, it's so different than the way we process things now. Like for me, 22 years later, how did you at that time, once you got on board with the leg situation, like we're doing this, we're amputating, how did you like reconcile with what was lost? Because you're winning state championships in your sophomore year of high school. Like you have this plan in your head of this like star athlete that you probably thought you were going to be in college and so on. So how did you walk through that reconciliation? Like that's not going to be what it is right now.
Yeah, honestly, I think it happened before the conversation with the doctor in some capacity, in that season of turmoil and loss and why me and angry at God. I finally got to a point where I stopped trying to control every little variable. I had tried everything that the world says will satisfy pain or distract you or whatever it is. And I just constantly was just tired and exhausted and just like, finally got to a breaking point where I was just tired of trying things on my own. I had to let go. I needed to surrender. I needed to trust the Lord for, things that I couldn't see. And I think there was a peace in that surrender. There's just a peace with this idea of like, it's not on me. I don't have to fully feel like I have the answer to every question. And I think at the time I was trying to be strong for everybody. I was trying to be okay. I was in this like, egotistic, like it's not okay to be not okay. I'm fine. Everything's good. Like even though it's clearly not, but like, I have to be strong for myself. I have to be strong for my family. I have to be strong for my community. I have to be strong for people that have supported me and that believed in me and that have invested in me from a rehab standpoint, all those things, and all the doctors who have done great surgeries to help me get back to where I was. And, it wasn't like amputation was like, everyone failed me. This is the only out. It was like, man, this journey has gotten me to a place where I wasn't equipped to make that decision. I wasn't prepared to make that decision until I was. And I think that there was a period of time, and it was in that time of letting go, of trying to be in control of everything, and the conversations of, what does your life look like? What do you want your life to look like? And I think the marrying of those two things, the ability to be able to dream, but also understand that it may not look exactly like I think, helped me be at a place where when amputation was brought to the table as the option or the solution for some of those things, it was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to trust the Lord, and I'm going to, make the hard decision, and we'll take it one step at a time.
So, what has faith always been a part of your life? Like, did you grow up in the church?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, strong foundation, and I think that was part of the wrestling match during the couple years of surgeries and recovery, was just trying to as a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid. I mean, you can understand faith, but there's only so much knowledge and awareness you can have, and from a maturity standpoint and a competency standpoint, and so. It was definitely a growth season in my faith journey, and a wrestling match more often than not. But then looking back, man, the provision and the faithfulness of the Lord through a lot of dark moments were abundantly clear.
So like I always wonder when people are like, I just knew it was the right decision. God told me to do this. I'm always like, but how did you know? Like, what did you hear a voice? Like, because then when big decisions have to be made with our family and things like that, and your mom says, pray about it or whatever. I'm like, yeah, but like, what am I going to feel? Like, is it a gut thing?
Yeah.
Did you feel it in your gut? Like God's telling me this is the decision I need to make?
Well, what I felt was peace.
Mm,
And no audible voice, no clarity in that regard. Like, not that that couldn't happen, but I felt a peace about the decision that
mm.
you can't explain. Like at 19 years old, I should not be at peace about having to cut my leg off, especially as a runner.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's really hard to explain, and to try to be like, oh yeah, that's I'm just a strong guy, whatever. Like that's totally not the case. And so I think that was, for me, it was just the feeling of peace. And I didn't even, it's not like I was even praying for peace. I just didn't want to be in control anymore. And I think that
Mm.
um you know I, I've kind of gotten to a point in my life now where it's like, when I am praying for peace, what I'm praying for is just the desire to be present in the moment. I feel like if the moments that we really are just present is when we're actually kind of at peace. It's when we're all over the place that we don't feel at peace, and we feel like we can't be present. And the thing that I've just one of the phrases I always say is, in his presence I can be
Mm.
present.
Mm.
And so, kind of what that's looked like as I've gotten older is just inviting them into every detail. And in doing that, it takes the ownership of me having to make the decision in it. And yes, you still have to make decisions, right? I'm not saying like just walk around and be like, oh, God's going to do it. Just take the wheel, like, no, you got to drive the car. But like, there's a pause there, that I think has been, over the years, it's just been molded, and something that I don't always do well, but I've understood, like, in order to truly have that peace, and that same peace that I had in that moment, there's got to be a level of surrender. There's got to be a willingness to invite him into the journey. And when his presence is there, it allows me to be present. And when I'm present, I feel peace.
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's like any anxiety. It's like if you can just get back to right in this moment,
Yeah,
you'll feel so much better.
no doubt.
Um, when you had the surgery and this doctor kind of gave you this like freedom to have this like outlook that this could be a good plan, did you have visions of the Paralympics? Like, was that even on your radar?
Couple funny stories.
Oh, good. I love a funny
so,
story.
and I guess two cool stories, but I left that office, you know, with that doctor when he kind of challenged me to dream a little bit. And I've always been a dreamer. I've always had big goals. I think as athletes, that's just kind of how we operate. We don't really know anything different. But my parents being elite athletes, my dad, coached a Division I collegiate tennis team for 38 years, and a lot of success with that program. And so I've watched eliteness happen. And
Mhm.
so I kind of developed my own little formula in that process. But um, I didn't realize during that kind of dark season that I wasn't dreaming. And because it's been a big part of my life. And when he challenged me to dream again, it was like, dude opened up the floodgates. And
Mm.
and I literally left that appointment thinking that it was probably amputation was probably going to happen. But I was like, I need to do some research. And I got to the hotel and I started Googling, amputation and, prosthetics, and just learning as much as I could. And like 2 hours later, I called my parents in, and I had found this master list of world records for Paralympic track and field.
Oh, wow.
And I pointed to the screen and I said, I can run these times. I said, my name's going to be on this list.
Oh, I love that.
And it wasn't the reason I was having the amputation, right? That was just like, I can dream again.
I'm gonna dream.
And
Yeah.
I'm going to dream, because that's what I do. That's what I've always done. And I forgot that. And now that it's back, and now that it's here, like the feeling of hope was restored, and this excitement for what the future could potentially look like. And I knew it was still a long road, and it wasn't like, hey, the day after amputation, like, put your boy on the track and give me a stopwatch. Like, it was like, hey, this is gonna take time, but I I I know how to work hard. I know how to build the right team. I know how to build the right systems to succeed. And that's gonna come as time goes on. So, that was Paralympics a part of the initial decision? No. Did I learn about it pretty quickly after?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then about a month and a half later, I found the email for the high performance director for the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee at the time for track and field. And I emailed her. Her name was Kathy Sellers. And I said, hey, Kathy, you don't know me. My name's Jarryd Wallace. I'm having my leg amputated in a couple months. And I just want to let you know that I'm going to be on the team going to London in 2012 in the Paralympic Games, which was less than 2 years away. And she was like, man, I love the energy. Like, it's a long recovery, all that, but like, we'll keep an eye out for you. You know, she was kind of like, who is this crazy kid? Like, what's happening? And I had the amputation in Indianapolis at IUPUI, and
Okay.
2 years later, U.S. trials for the Paralympic team was at IUPUI at their track, and she called my name, and I made my first Paralympic team outside of just inside of 2 years from the amputation. So pretty full circle journey, and when you speak something into existence and you build a good plan to go around it, it's amazing what can happen.
Wait, so that was 2012 Olympics because you said
Yeah,
London. Okay.
yeah.
Oh, I'm from Indianapolis. See,
Oh,
I live in Raleigh now, but I moved here
cool.
3 years ago. I'm like, oh, I wish I would have gone to that. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
wow. And so, because you're from Georgia, though, does Indy
Mhm.
just have like a really good specialist for that these kinds of surgeries?
Yeah, so we had to kind of do a little bit of research. As you can imagine, an elective amputation is not something that every doctor would sign
Would
up
do.
for.
Yeah.
And so we had to spend some time. We built a great team from a prosthetic company standpoint, and learned about the technology to the best of our capabilities, and created a really good plan that we thought would give me the best opportunity to succeed on the back end. And we started interviewing doctors, and finally found one who we were confident would collaborate and work with the team, knowing like even to like the millimeter of length of my amputation and how that would impact the technology that I would be wearing post amputation, and the capabilities that I
Yeah.
would be able to have based on my height, based on my weight, everything of those natures. So we really built a great plan and really built a good team going through this. I think that, again, going back to that doctor, like getting me to dream out the gate, and me going
Mhm.
back to like, okay, here's a dream. Now it's building a team. Now it's building systems. Now it's having a game plan, and then it's walking through and executing it. That's what I've done my whole life. It's what I've watched my parents do in their respective fields, and so it was like, all right, boom. Now we're just back to boom what we do in a sense. And we found an amazing doctor who is his dad actually perfected an amputation surgery, brought it to the U.S., trained him and his brother in it,
Oh,
and
wow.
it's a phenomenal surgery. They actually when they cut the tibia and fibula, they suture a piece of your heel onto the bottom of your cut
Oh,
limb. And so what it does is it allows the bones to repressurize and recalcify, so I can bear 100% of my body weight on the distal end of my limb, which pretty much no amputees can do. So I can take a
wow.
little bit more wear and tear on my limb, and it doesn't get torn up as much. And so I have had a much, I don't want to say I want to have more successful recovery or, comparison to anybody, but the ability and the kind of the damage I can put on my leg without like
Yeah.
the negative repercussions is pretty high. And again, a lot of that had to do with just the fact that we were able to make a plan and do what we felt was best for my needs.
Wow, that's so cool. And I feel like must have been a little bit overwhelming to pick someone. What was the doctor's name?
Jan Erdl, Dr.
Okay.
Erdl, yeah, from Indianapolis, IUPUI.
I'm just like,
He's
do I know anybody that knows him? I gotta put that name down.
maybe he's a great guy. We still stay in touch as well. They were obviously 2 years later. He brought his whole family out to the track, to the competition, to watch me make the team. And yeah, I mean, just he was one of those guys that we went and met with him. Within about 3 minutes, he was like, "Oh, we absolutely have to take this leg off, man. Like this
Oh
is
yeah.
massively debilitating for you." Like he was just like. He's like, I'm sorry that you waited this long. Like, I wish I would have
Oh
known you. Like, we could have helped you earlier. And like, and I kind of, for me, I was like, man, I'm glad I didn't know you earlier, because this journey was timed so
yeah.
perfectly for what I needed to be at this place, to have this conversation with you, to be ready to receive this and move forward with a good game plan. And man, we just had such a great team from go, and I really gave me the confidence going into the surgery, and the peace, right, going
Mhm.
into the surgery, knowing that it was the right decision.
I mean, you're in pain every day before you get this
Mm.
this amputated. And now
Yeah.
you don't feel pain.
I forget I'm wearing it half the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does it affect your everyday life?
You know, if I have to get up to go to the bathroom at 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, that's you crawl into the bathroom or
Yeah.
hopping over there, but
Yeah.
you know, it doesn't. It really
Yeah.
doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there are some days where I'll get a pressure sore or something
Mhm,
where it's not
mhm,
fitting well, and maybe I have to keep my leg off for a day or two and just crutch around. But you know, that's so minor in the
mhm.
grand scheme of things when it comes to being in chronic pain, addicted to pain medication, on so many meds. Like I shouldn't be, you know, definitely shouldn't drive and things of those nature. And so, yeah, just quality of life. It's you can't even compare it.
Can't
And I'm
even.
very grateful in that regard, right? I mean, you know, every now and then I have that phantom sensation or phantom pain that
Uh-huh.
some people talk about, but very rarely. And you know, I think my surgery really was very successful, and I've been able to stay extremely active. The prosthetic technology that exists nowadays is really unbelievable, and obviously, you know, I've made an amazing career out of it, and in that, I've been able to be a part of some of the innovation in this space as well,
Mhm,
which has been really fun. So yeah, I you know, there are days where I remember I'm wearing a leg, you know,
mhm.
but for the most part, it's like, you know, just like anybody at the end of the day is ready to take their shoes off, you know, I just take my leg off.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the topics I'm super curious about as a parent, and I know you have three kids, right?
Two kids, yeah, two
Oh,
little
two kids.
boys.
Okay, two
hmm
boys. How old are they?
Levi just turned 5 today,
Okay.
and
Happy
Colton,
birthday,
our youngest,
Levi.
is about to turn 2. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Love it. I have all boys as well.
Come on.
A- And as I know, it's a wild house. Um, as a parent, though, I'm like, okay. And as an adult with parents, I think about like being in your parents' shoes while this is all happening
Yeah.
because when you are parenting an adult child, like you're still their parent, but they are able to make their own decisions. And so I'm just so curious how your parents walked through you making these decisions and like
hmm
what kind of support was helpful or what kind of support might have been too much and what you were looking for. Because we want to do this well when our kids are in their 20s too, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's pretty amazing. There's no playbook for parents to read that goes through this type of experience, and my adversity was relative, right? I mean, you could rewrite this and rinse and repeat this story for, you know, cancer, for, you know, loss of a sibling, for, you know, any type of trauma, or adversity that exists in all of our stories in some way, shape, or form, right? So, you know, the lessons or the applications aren't, you know, massively different in as far as the pain and the emotion processing, but everybody manages those things differently, and because we're so unique, there's no like right way that you have to go through that process. And you know, I feel like they did a really amazing job of leaning in when they felt like they needed to, and giving me space when they felt like I needed it. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, there's no way that you can be critical in any way, shape, or form on how they managed and assisted me in this process. You know, they're going through their own type of trauma, right? You know, and so they're you know, being a parent now and realizing like how helpless they were during that
Mm-hmm.
time. Like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
as a dad, like, man, goodness gracious, just want my boy to do what he loves to do and be happy and be out of pain. And like, I would give anything to change places, you know, if the shoe was on the other foot for me and my little man. And so, you know, I'm so impressed with how they handled it. And I guess kind of a cool story uh, to kind of talk about, and you know, I feel like I keep coming back to this peace thing, but
Yeah, I love it.
the you know, every time I had 10 surgeries before my amputation. Amputation was surgery 11, and every time I'd go into surgery, I would take my Bible and I put it on my chest and into surgery, and then right before they took me into the prep room in the OR, my parents would pray over me, and just, you know, that
Mm.
I would feel peace, and that I would you know, just trust, and that I would rest, and that I wouldn't be anxious, and
Mm.
you know, obviously the surgery would go well, and recovery would go well. And so that was just kind of the process we got into. We got good at it. We got 10 reps of that in, going into amputation. And I'm sitting in the prep room in Indianapolis on June 22nd of 2010 at like 6:20 in the morning. First surgery out, and it was really his only surgery that day because it was pretty invasive surgery. And got the Bible on my chest, right? And I'm looking around the room. I got my sister and mom and dad there, and for the first time, I had an unwavering amount of peace, and I saw the uncertainty and fear that I know that they saw in my eyes the 10 surgeries before that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a really cool moment because I asked if I could pray over them before I went into surgery.
Mm.
And I got to pray over my family before I went in to have my amputation, because the peace that God had given me and the peace that I had so confidently felt going through this decision-making process, they just weren't there yet. Mm-hmm. And so my prayer really in that moment was, the peace, God, that you've given me, I don't need it anymore. Like, I'm going to surgery. This thing's been done. It's in your hands, but I want them to have the same peace. I want them to be comforted by this decision and not to be worried, and know that I'm okay. And it was just such a special moment because, again, this goes back to, how did they handle this? They modeled it so well for 2.5 years of loving me well, of leaning in, that in the moment where I maybe needed it the most, I was so, God was just so faithful to give me the strength to give them what they needed really in that moment, which was to feel the peace in that decision. And so, it was just, I can't say enough of how much they supported me through that journey and helping me build those, support systems and the team to help the recovery become as successful as it ultimately became. Pretty special folks.
Wow, that's so beautiful. Yeah. It's like when your kids are under your roof, like, you still only have so much control, right? Like,
Yeah.
they're going to make the decisions they make regardless. Like, we are trying our best to raise these kids to make good choices, but at the end of the day, like, they're going to be their own humans. And the older my kids get, like, my oldest is 12, I'm like, gosh, in like 6-7 years, like, I'm always going to be here to support him, but like, this is his life. These are his own decisions. And I just think about like how heartbreaking it can be on the other side of parenting. You're still parenting, but like, you got to stay out of it. Like, you can't make these decisions for them. So it must have been so cool for your parents to see you feel so confident and strong and peaceful in this huge decision.
Yeah, I think that they, that was pretty evident. Even post prayer, you could just see their eyes. There was definitely like an exhale that happened in the room. I think they just needed to know that I was okay, and this was the best way that I could do that for them. And that was, again, modeling what they had done so well, over the 2.5 years for me. And so I know it was felt in that moment, and it was definitely a special moment that, I'm sure we'll all take through the rest of our lives.
Yeah, it's like the giving up control thing that you were talking about earlier. It's like, it really just like relates to parenting so much, because you're like, your parents had to give up control, let you make
That's right.
your decision. Where along this line did you meet your wife?
It was shortly after World Champs 2013. I think it was the end of that year, December of 2013. I had been a part of a speaking event at a church in Atlanta, and they were housing one of the pastors there who I got to know really well, and was actually just coming over to hang out with him and have a man night. And I knocked on the door, and my wife answered, and I was like, "You're not Nick." And he obviously came pretty quickly after we made the introductions, and he was in the process of wrapping some stuff up. I got there a little early, and so her and I ended up just hanging out upstairs for a bit and talking. And
Oh my gosh.
she crashed man night. I took her out on a date a week later, and the rest is history, as they would say.
Oh my gosh. So it wasn't a sister. It wasn't his sister or anything. Just like
Mm-mm.
another friend from the church.
Yeah, yeah. So they've just always hosted, a pastor who's needed, somewhere to stay in their house, and he had
Yeah.
just moved from Texas and got an opportunity with this church, and so they were housing
Oh,
him
they were
until he kind of, yeah, they were housing him in the basement until he was, ready
uh
to kind of transition into whatever was next. So, yeah, it was just kind of a good timing, I guess.
Oh my gosh. I know you just got to have your eyes open. You don't know when it's going to happen.
Well, and it's
Um,
so funny because I like literally 8 weeks before that was kind of like writing in my journal, and I was like, all right, I'm done like trying to find a girl. I'm
mm,
done with like I just need to focus on myself for a while. And it was like the moment I let go of like that pursuit, it's like, ah,
there
seems
she
to be a
is.
pattern here.
Yes. Let go of the control. Let go of the control. So now this is like a staple in your life. Wait, did I read? Oh, four-time world champion.
Hmm.
14 years on the world stage. So this is
Hmm.
like a huge part of your life now. Tell us a little bit about sponsorship models. I saw you're sponsored by Toyota and Noble, which I
Hmm.
love. It seems a little non-traditional, but it's really not. Like I went and looked on their sites and like this is a big thing for them. But Toyota, to me, from the outside looking in, I don't know many athletes sponsored by Toyota.
Yeah, an interesting journey. I've gone through seasons of having management representation, and I've gone through probably more seasons where I've managed those relationships and everything on
Hmm.
my own. Um, I think at the end of the day, from a sponsorship side of things, you're going to always be your best advocate. So if you have the bandwidth and the capabilities and the competency to be able to go through contracts and negotiate and advocate for yourself, it is a great deal. We are kind of moving into an age where you lose a little bit of legitimacy, maybe if you don't have an
Hmm.
agent or someone's not going
Hmm.
to respond to your LinkedIn outreach or email or whatever it is, right? To network, and there's a little hustle and a little grind that's involved there. But again, that both of those contracts came out of really not even trying to pursue contracts for me specifically. Toyota, I was working with a company in Japan, consulting and designing some of the technology that I was running on, and they had a big event, and I was doing a little speaking at the event, and I did a little running clinic, and just networked and engaged with a lot of people that were there. I really wasn't aware of who was there. I knew there was just some support and a lot of energy and hype going into the Tokyo 2020 games. This was in like 2016
Hmm.
and or 15, 16 time frame, and ended up having this amazing conversation with a guy that worked for Toyota. I didn't realize that he was like number 4 in charge of Toyota at the
Oh.
time, but it was a pretty powerful guy, and ultimately he just nonstop started emailing Toyota North America and was like, "We want this guy on our team. We want this guy on
Mm.
our team. We want this guy on our team." And so I had a really unique process. Normally, it was a very high vetting process to go through that sponsorship deal, and obviously they brought me in, and I had to go through a little bit of the vetting, but it was really interesting how I got originally connected with them, and then we had a great relationship out the gate, and again, being able to advocate for yourself in some capacity there and have the relationship start in a good area, or
Mhm.
someone that they trust giving you the vote of confidence, or hey, we check the box there for him is really helpful. So that was kind of how I landed with them. And then kind of similar with Noble, I was working on a project and found an opportunity for us to collaborate on some design side of things, and they were just really lean and mean in how they did their process and innovation. I needed someone with kind of a quick turnkey like concepts and process to just expedite some of the things that we were trying to do, and they were all in and excited for it. And conversation two, I got an email from the head of sports marketing basically, and they're like, hey, we'd actually like to have a partnership conversation with you if you're interested. And I just finished my contract with Atlanta Track Club in Mizuno,
Mm. Mhm.
and was kind of in a position to renegotiate. And the opportunity with them, just made too much sense, and the brand alignment made too much sense to not step away from Mizuno and move with Noble. And so it was it's been a great decision. I'm really, really proud to be a Noble brand athlete and an ambassador of their company, and excited for the future and the things that they're doing. And same thing with Toyota. I mean, Toyota has really introduced the world to parasport and the idea of mobility in a way that I don't think many global partners of the Olympic community has really ever done. And they've they put their money where their mouth is when it comes to that, as far as finding ways not only just to support their core athletes, but really to support the Paralympic movement and all the athletes who make the games. And so it's been really it's been an honor to be a part of those companies. I've been with Toyota for almost 8 years now,
Wow.
and Noble has been 3. I was with Mizuno for 5 years before that. So I've been, again, I've been very fortunate in my career to have great support. And, it's a little bit of an outlier in the para world. There's not many para athletes that are able to financially support themselves via
Yeah.
sponsorships through their athletic career. And, I've at the right place at the right time, and having the conversations and being able to connect the dots and the brands to who I am. And I think, to lean into your question even just a little bit more, like knowing who you are as a brand, knowing what you bring to the table beyond athletics.
Mhm.
Not that winning doesn't matter, but I won 4 gold medals and broke 3 world records and had 0 sponsors in the first 3 years of
Mhm.
my career, and so it's not all about winning. At times, yeah, absolutely, and I think in certain seasons it's very helpful. But you have to be a little bit more than just a success story sometimes for brands to really bring you into the journey. I think I've always wanted to align myself with brands where I wasn't just another athlete, but I was an
Yeah.
integral part of who they are, and really represent them in a very genuine and authentic way. And I've been very intentional about that with my partnerships, and I've said no to some great opportunities because it just didn't fit.
Yeah, it's pretty cool how the Toyota story worked out. And it's always like, when you're at these like big events and stuff, you don't always know who you're talking to. Like, and how would you approach that conversation differently had you known he was like the number 4 guy? Would you have been a little bit nervous, a
For
little bit
sure.
timid, especially at that young age?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really cool because it's almost better when they don't know that when they know that you don't realize who they are too, because then they
Yeah.
can really get a sense of who you are. What's your favorite Toyota car?
Oh, the Tundra. No
Okay.
questions. Yeah, no
Is
questions
that what you
asked.
drive?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big bright
um,
orange Tundra TRD Pro. It's
oh,
hard to
that's
miss me coming down the road.
good. Um, Noble, I just heard of them though. Like the woman who leads my strength training class at the gym, she wears Noble shoes, and I was like, "What is this
Love it.
brand?" And then, of course, I started getting Instagram ads because it
Because they
somehow
heard
read
you
my
talk about
mind.
it.
Yeah, well, I don't even know if I talked about it. I'm like, you just read my mind, literally. Um, but yeah, that's so great. And the sponsorship model just it's crazy how much it's changed over the last 10 years even and the importance of like your online presence and things like that. It sounds like you have a lot of good speaking opportunities as well though.
Totally. I try to incorporate, especially with my contracts, opportunities to speak to the company and to utilize me not just as a brand ambassador or on a social standpoint, or as an athlete, but I like business. I like to get into the weeds. I like to understand the operation sides of things. I like to take the processes and systems that have allowed me to be successful as an athlete and help translate them into other avenues as well. And there's a lot of business application to a lot of the things that I've have helped me become successful in athletics. I talked about transitions earlier, and just you know power of having the right relationships and transitions. There's a handful of other things that are very helpful in transitions, and kind of having a roadmap to master that process, I think, is really important. And so I love having opportunities to work inside of the companies that I'm a part of in that capacity. And also, am slowly building, a process for that, to be a little bit more mainstream thing that I do on the side. That's separate, of course, from my contractual obligations, and more of, hey, whether it's automotive dealerships, or whether it's Fortune 500 companies, or whether it's a small mom and pop shop, like I can come and help, and help that organization or team level up if they're in a little bit of a rut. So it's something I think there's a lot of a lot of great people out there doing it. Everyone's got their own story and mission and capabilities to connect in that capacity. But, it's something that I love to do and I'm just extremely passionate about.
Sounds like you got your career sort of figured out for when the Paralympic life is time to retire.
Yeah, I think I'm in the season of life. I'm 34. It's hard to know the next games is at home and not try
Oh,
to
you gotta
at least
go.
consider doing it. We have built a 4-year plan. I'm having conversations with sponsors and partners to kind of align all around that 4-year plan. But I also am building that off ramp, and I am in the
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
process of kind of developing what that next thing is. And of course, having opportunities to work with teams. I think in my capacity, I can help 4 or 5 teams at most a year in the system in the way that I want to kind of develop it. And it's not one of those, hey, bring me in for 45 minutes and I'm going to rah your team. It's like, no, I'm going to be a part of your team for this year.
Yeah.
And, here's what you're going to get. And here's what I'm going to come in and do. And we're going to pull back the curtain on some things, and we're going to put a magnifying glass on some things. And we're even going to zoom out on some things and really make sure that we're connecting things in the most effective way possible. And, the Olympic model. I got on a plane in Paris, and where am I going to be in LA? And I built a system all the way from LA to the moment I got off the plane. And I've got checkpoints that's between now and the end of this year, and between all next year to where I want to be, not just athletically, but where I want to be with my family, where I want to be in my community, impact in my community, where I want to be in foundational driven stuff and organizationally driven stuff. So yeah, it's such a part of now, I guess, who I am, because this is the 5th time, I'm kind of going through this rinse and repeat cycle. It'll be almost 20 years of doing this at a very
Wow.
high level. And, it's something that I think can, a lot of people can learn from and be impacted by.
So, okay, you mentioned the community piece. I always like struggle with I'll read all these books that like I just read this book called Women of Welcome about, welcoming immigrants to the United States, all these different um, social good causes, right? And then I have such a hard time implementing that into my everyday
Mm-hmm.
life. And
Yeah.
I just bring that up to ask you, because you mentioned your community, like, how do you make time and make sure you make that an important part of your life to, like, it's like every day is just like a little bit of a routine, and you get the kids
Mm-hmm.
to school and you do that, you do your training, and like sometimes we forget to stop and do the other things. So I'm just curious how you implement that into your life.
Yeah, I think, community is kind of twofold for me. First layer of community is kind of my home community, my familial community, my,
Mm.
network, our school and the friend relationships that exist there, our church and the relationships exist there, our family, and then, our neighborhood. And so we've kind of got pods. There's obviously a lot of overlapping between schools and churches and family and, where we live as far as neighborhoods. So they all overlap. But I think that there's one of the things that I think I've learned. It's okay to plan and be intentional about community. And so,
Mhm.
like, understanding that building those things into your structure is not forcing relationships, it's creating opportunities for relationships to thrive and to grow and to develop. And it's like, you plan on, if you want to develop in your relationship with your spouse, like, plan a date night. Like, if you don't
Yeah.
want a date night for like 3 months, then you're going to feel like ships passing in the night, and that's just
Mhm.
the nature of life and busyness. And so, is it disingenuous to build in time for relationships that you care about? No, it's actually really wise and really smart thing to do. And so
Mhm.
I feel like sometimes people try to hope that organically community just happens, and like, things
Yeah.
don't just happen. Like, things
No.
don't just happen. Like,
No.
every now and then something will fall out of the sky and hit you. But like, like the Toyota partnership, for example, but like,
Yes.
that, other than that, right? Like, things don't just like magically happen. And
Mhm.
there's a layer of intentionality that comes in. You have to be in the right place at the right time, even for those kind of fall out of the sky things to occur. So there was processes that came into play for that. So, I think that there has to be a level of intentionality in what and how you kind of build community. And that's something I think, like, my wife's done, especially church, family, neighborhood stuff. My wife's done such a great job on, and like just some non-negotiables that we
Mhm.
really have. Could be easy to say, we're just gonna now, and it's like, no, like this is what we're doing, and this is how we're gonna
Mm.
do it, and this is why this is important to us. And it's up to us as the parents to lead that. And now it's like our kids, if we're like, gosh, we're tired, like, no, we go. It's Wednesday night, we're going to church, or we got soccer tonight, or we're doing this with our friends that we get together. Well, whatever. So it's if it was all on me for that, we'd be doing
Mm.
real bad. But my wife leads that side of things so well, and really helps make sure that our community is sound, strong, and aligns with our values, and who we want to be, and who we want to be around.
I love that. Yeah. I do think not always the case, but like it's similar in our family, like socially and things like that. Like I'm the one kind of like getting us out the door more than my husband is. He comes, but if I weren't planning the things, I don't know that it would happen as often. Um, and you're so right about that because like we moved here 3 years ago, and sometimes people will be like, how did you like make friends so fast? How did all this happen? And I'm like, I literally like put myself out there time and time
Mm-hmm.
again. Like I basically stood on my street and like forced myself upon the neighbors. Like,
Love me.
I want to be your friend. Come over to my home, and it's not always natural. It's not always easy. It's not always comfortable, but it almost always pays off. And some friendships, like, it doesn't totally like mesh like you thought it might have, but then unexpected friendships happen that you never thought could happen or would happen. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think you're so right with the intentionality because the like random Thursday night hang or whatever, like maybe happens occasionally, but it's not,
Mm-hmm.
you got to plan for the Sunday dinners and the things like
That's
that.
right. Well, and
Um,
there's a time and place for, I would say, surface level relationships. But
yeah.
I think at the end of the day, when we talk about community, there's a depth involved with community, and there's an intentionality that's involved to create that depth. So not that it's not great to have friends and go getting big groups and do those things, but who are you going to call when an emergency happens at your house and you've got to take a kid to the hospital and you need to leave one kid at 1:30 in the
Mm-hmm.
morning still sleeping? I mean, who are you going to call?
Yeah.
And who's there? Who's going to pick up the phone and be at your house in 3 minutes, right? And the person who you went to a tailgate with a couple times is not probably the person that's going to run over to the house. So
You got to know the neighbors, man. You got to know the
that's
neighbors.
it.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so we haven't talked a ton about the actual Paralympics. So maybe you can handpick one of your favorite experiences better than me just asking you a random question about one of the
Cool.
games.
Yeah, I mean, just overview real quick. I've been to 4 games: London, Rio, Tokyo, and Paris. London was my very first games. Was there in the 400 and the 4x1 relay. Rio was, I think, probably the games that I was supposed to do the best in, and
Mm.
unfortunately, just had a poor outcome. I hadn't lost in 100 meters for about 18 months. Got respiratory infection when I got down there. Ended up
Mhm.
getting sixth in the race. Our relay team won gold, broke the world record, and they got disqualified. So it just wasn't a great experience. But it was just that's the nature of the games, right? And I think it taught me so many great lessons about you can put in and you can be the best in the world, and something out of your control can happen. And how are you going to handle it? How are you going to
Mm.
manage it? How are you going to navigate it? How are you going to respond to it? So it definitely taught me an invaluable lesson there. Tokyo was a very unique games in the sense that it was an empty stadium, and there was just not the
Mm.
normal hype, and the village was very weird, and the fact that we were kind of like forced to stay in our room, and there was just weird. It was just weird. It was just different
Yeah.
in so many different ways. But it was also the first games where I won a medal, and an individual event, and so it was super special in that regard. But I think that if I'm being honest, like I thought Tokyo, if planning out my career, I thought Tokyo would probably be my last games. 3 games is a lot of games,
Yeah.
um, and then when it happened and it was postponed and then no fans were able to be there, I was like, well, I can go 3 more years. I don't want my last games to be in an empty stadium. I want my family to be able to be there. And so I was like, all right, we can do 3 more years. Let's get going. And a year in, I just wasn't having fun. I
Mm.
was burnt out. running was just like terrible. I changed coaches like 3 times just because at that time I was working with whoever was at the university, and there was a lot of turnover in the sprints program there. And I just was like, it's not that who was there wasn't great. I was just tired. I was tired of all the change. I was tired of trying to like hit the reset button every year. Tired of figuring out what programs were what. And kind of was like, man, maybe I'm done. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm supposed to be done. I don't feel like I don't have anything planned for next. And I was like, well, maybe I'll try long jump. It's something my whole career everyone has kind of told me I'd be good at because I have a lot of natural foot speed, and it's a technical event, and I'm a tactician by nature. One of the things that's made me successful through my career is just the technicality and comprehension of biomechanics and body awareness and proprioception. And so I kind of was like, well, there's only one person I trust that can get me to where I need to get to in 2 years and change. So let me call him, and if he says he's on board, then I guess we'll keep rolling, and we'll just do it a new event. And so that's basically what happened. Dan Paff, who's coached multiple Olympic champions in various events, is kind of the guru of return to play and biomechanics in the track world. Lives in Austin, Texas, and I just reached out to him and said, "Hey, man, like, here's my goals. Here's what I want to do. You're the only guy I think can get me there, and you're the only guy I'm calling. So either it's going to be you and me, or I might be either forcing 100, 200 again, or I might just, end it." And he called me back and he said, listen, he said, let's keep doing the 100 because I think I can revitalize you a little bit there, bring in a fresh new perspective, but let's attempt the long jump and just see where we're at. He kind of was like, I gotta see if this kid's got any talent before I like commit to what I can do. So we went through half a season, and I won nationals in the 100 and got third in the long jump, but like had a really good outing. And he basically said, "Hey man, I feel like we've hit a ceiling in the 100. I don't see too like much more at this time." But he said, I don't. He's like, "I have no idea where your ceiling is for long jump." He said, "This guy could be the limit." He said, "So if you trust me, like let's focus. Let's go to world champs this year and pull out of the 100. Let's focus on long jump and see what happens." So that was the story behind transitioning over to long jump. And,
yeah.
I go into Paris this year as, kind of, I would say maybe a dark horse. People knew what I was capable of. And if I had a great day, I absolutely had a shot to win it. And, I think that I was in the back of the minds of a lot of my competitors. I had, at nationals, I'd broken the American record. I was, I was the second guy in the world ever to jump 8 meters, 26 feet, 6 inches. For the non-metric folks listening, but so it was one of those like, man, if everything really comes together, this could be it. And got into the warm up, body felt great, had one of the best pre-meets, had one of the best last sessions going into the comp, had probably the best run throughs I've ever had. 8+ on both the run through jumps. I was like, man, this is about to go nuts. And we got into competition, and we couldn't find it exactly what we were kind of putting together in the warm up stuff. But as in competition, like you can't control it. You just have to take what you've got and compete and grind and see what we can make happen. So on my 5th jump, we got something good enough to get us onto the podium, and was just by far and away my most special games, just in the sense that for the first time, my family was there. My parents were there for the first time. My wife and little boys were there, and my coach was there. Just the whole team, the team that we built to get us to the finish line. We're all there celebrating and enjoying that moment together. And, getting to take that picture and hold your boy, or both your boys at, on the track and have the flag there. Like, that's what dreams are made of, right? That's what it's all about. And, 4 games in, I finally got to capture that moment with the people that matter the most.
Wow. So do you think, cause like you ran into like a little burnout and then you switched events, and then you said you thought this would be your last games, but the 2028 Olympics being here, Paralympics being here, like, do you think having the new event and getting the bronze in the long jump will give you the momentum you need to go through 2028?
Interesting way to answer this question. No. But I will preface it. No, because I don't have anything else that I feel like I need to prove in the sport. I've accomplished more than most people could ever wish or dream of in an athletic career. And, I haven't won a Paralympic gold medal, but I'm in the point of my life. Like, I'm not really defined by those things anymore. Like they don't like get me fired up. I love competing. I love to be the best version of myself. And if the opportunity presents itself, I absolutely love winning. But I'm not making a decision to continue going on the scale of, I got a bronze, give me some more time and I can do better. I know I can do better. I know there's more there. And even though that's true, there is more there. And I think that I have got more potential. The only reason that I'm going to keep going is because I'm still having fun.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying it and I love it. And it's helping me continue to have impact in the community that I love, and the community that I was brought into when I lost my leg, 14 years ago. And it's given me perspective and opportunities that I could never imagine. And as long as I'm still enjoying it, and as long as it still makes sense for me to invest my time and majority of my time and energy in that space, then I'm going to keep doing it. But as I said earlier, I am building an off ramp, and I've got some plans for the future that's going to still be intricately involved in this community and in this space, but it's just going to look different, and my role is going to be different. And I can kind of take a back seat, and I kind of been the hero of the story for a while, right? I've built a team around me. I've got a lot of great guides helping me get to the finish line and be able to have the support to be on the podium and to be that hero, for lack of a better word. And but I'm almost ready to be the guide. I'm almost ready to be that person that comes around and helps other people write their stories and tell their stories and have create experiences for people that they've never thought they could possibly have. And so I think I'll know when I'm more excited about being the guide than I am about being the hero. That's when it's going to be time to hang up the spikes and move into the next season.
Okay, so have you read the book? Do you know what book I'm going to ask you about?
Probably, but Donald Miller.
Yeah. I was like, surely he's read this book.
Yeah, I've read all of his books, but my favorite from him is A Million Miles in a Thousand Years.
Oh yeah,
which is an earlier one, but that was a huge part of the beginning part of my journey. One of my mentors drove from Athens, Georgia to Indianapolis when I had my surgery, and he goes, "I drove this whole way to give you this book." Gave me the book, sat in the hospital with me for 30 minutes, and then went home. And that story and that book that book defines story as a character who wants something and overcomes conflict to get it. And that was the foundation of the journey that I went through. And it was the beginning of my introduction to Donald Miller, and then obviously his understanding of story and story brand and the impact that story has on people's lives. He's definitely impacted a lot of the processes that I work through.
Okay, I swear I've read that book, but I think it was so long ago I don't even remember it. I mean, I read Blue Like Jazz when I was in college.
Yeah.
Back in the
Through
day.
the Painted Desert.
Maybe I read that one. Maybe I didn't read the one you're talking about. And then I have read Hero on a Mission.
Cool.
I think that's his only like newer like the story brand books that I've read.
You would love A Million Miles in a Thousand Years, especially if you read Blue Like Jazz, because so the book, he defines story as a character who wants something and overcomes conflict to get it. And he breaks up the sections of the books as the first section is a character. The next one's a character who wants something. And so he slowly like builds out the definition through the origin of the book. But he wrote it because he got approached by producers to turn Blue Like Jazz into a movie. And during that process, he was challenged, and they were challenging him to change the story so that it was a better movie, so that people would like it more. And he started kind of being like, "What do you mean changes? Was it not good enough? And then
Yeah.
he basically started to say, well, what is story, and why are we changing something that was true, and was I maybe not living a good enough story? And so this book is the journey of him learning how to live the story he wanted to be told, while people were kind of jabbing a little bit at the Blue Like Jazz portion of his real story.
Mhm.
And so it's a great insight into his thought process, who he is as a person, and then what ultimately was, I believe, is the catalyst for where Story Brand it actually is
Yeah.
today.
I actually don't think I've read that book then. I
You
think
would
I've,
love it.
yeah, okay, I'll have to read that. Do you do the thing he tells you to do? Like, do you wake up in the morning and like write your obituary?
I do not. I don't take all of the, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think it is a brilliant it's a brilliant challenge. I think what it causes you to think in a different way, if
For
you're
sure.
willing to kind of consider that. No, if I did everything that I loved in books that I read, I wouldn't have any time in the
You
day.
don't have any time to do anything. I know.
There's so many good ones out there, but yeah, I've only
I
got a little
know.
bit of margin time.
Well, I mean, that's honestly why I actually stopped listening to his podcast, and several other like podcasts like that, because I was just like, I have so much input that I can't even like live it, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But he's got some really great information. It's just a matter of like, if I'm not going to be putting these things into action, I need to stop putting them into my brain, because then I'm overwhelmed that I'm not doing the things that I think I should be doing,
That's so
you
true.
know?
I love it.
Okay, well, we wrap up the podcast here with a few questions. What is something professionally or personally you would like to do that you have not done yet?
Um, I think working with teams, doing kind of that consulting, leadership development, leveling up, teaching people how to master transitions. And I've kind of defined that as managing with excellence the space between where you are and where you want to be.
Mm,
And I've built kind of a roadmap for what that looks like. And, I've had great opportunities. I've given a TED talk on it, and, building a formula, and I've talked on it a few times, but I'm really excited to have the opportunities to work with teams to take them through this process. And it's very measurable. And so I just want to see if it works in other areas. I
yeah,
know it works for me. And so,
yeah,
I'm kind of like, I want to see how other teams and other organizations, other groups navigate through this process, and what the ROI is for them.
that's awesome. Best most recent book you've read?
Um, Probably this one. Do
Oh,
Over
okay.
by John A. Cuff.
Uh-huh.
It's actually very, it was funny. I kind of went through this mastering transition process the past few years, and through the TED Talk prep, and then
Mm-hmm.
read this book, and there's a lot of alignment in our thought processes on things. Not as,
Okay.
it's different in nature, but it's very similar in his idea of like, sometimes you just have to hit a do-over, and his is like, hey, when something changes, like treat it fresh. And we're all in transitions, and it's kind of the same deal as like, you kind of need to have a plan for what this do-over, this transition looks like. So yeah, that one's been a kind of a fun when I've read it. And I listen to books first, and then if I like it, I'll
Oh,
listen to it and read at the same time and mark it up, and then I'll go back and read what I marked up. So I kind of have a
yeah.
process of how I digest books, so that I don't like overly consume them or spend too much time on them.
Yeah.
And I typically listen to books like 2 to 2.5 times speed, just so I can
Uh-huh.
get through them pretty quick.
Yeah. What book of his did I read? Soundtracks. I read that a
Yeah,
couple
it's a
years
great
ago.
one.
Yeah, I like Johnny Cuff. He's good stuff. He's got good info out there.
Yeah,
And he's a runner.
he is active,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah. Okay, what is your last message? Oh, wait, no, wait. I have one more. You can go to a concert tomorrow or tonight. Who are you going to see?
um, Probably the Dirty Govs. They're
Okay.
a band out of Knoxville, Tennessee. They're coming to Athens in about 3 weeks. I've seen them about 12 times in concerts. My wife's and I's
Oh,
first
fun.
dance was one of their songs. We're big fans of the band, and they took a little hiatus for a while. They wrote a benediction song, like the left. We did our first dance to that song, and then they came back like 5 years later, and so it's been awesome. Love having them back, and just southern rock, man. It's just
Oh,
good.
I
It's
love
just
that.
good stuff. So
Dirty Doves. Like
the
Doves?
the dirty govs, like
Oh, Gov.
govnas.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
the Dirty Govs. Yeah,
I'll
check
have
them
to check
out.
them
They're
out.
they're great. So we actually have a rental property, and our the company is Benediction Properties from
Oh,
the name of that song,
nice.
and then all the houses that we have are named after songs from the
Oh,
band.
I love
Yeah,
that. That's so good.
yeah.
I'm going to see Sturgill Simpson tonight. Do you
Let's
listen to him?
go.
Yeah.
I know who he is. I'm not, I don't listen. I don't listen to a ton of music that outside of like the few genres that I love, or the few
Okay.
people I love. But I know who he is. That's
I
awesome.
was gonna say, I thought based on what you said, these guys sound like. I thought, oh, but he might like
Yeah.
Sturgill.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited. It'll be my third time seeing him, and he's so so
Come
good.
on.
Last message to leave with the audience.
Oh man. I think the foundation of this entire conversation was built around this idea of peace, and
Mm,
whether you're Christian and faith based or not, like the idea of peace is something that I think we all want to feel. And at the end of the day, I think the foundation of feeling peace is beginning to let go of
mhm.
control. And when you get them white knuckles, or you feel like you have to vice grip things, it's probably the time that you need to actually let go a little bit more. It's really hard when you're in the moment and when you're in the grind, and you just feel like you've got to be in control of everything, and you've got to just hold on so tightly to things. But it's in the moments that we're willing to let go just enough, to step back just enough to gain that perspective, or gain that presence that we ultimately want to feel, where some of the magic happens. So if you feel like you're too close, you feel like you're out of control, just look down at your hands and see if you're squeezing a little too tight. Maybe it'd be a good posturing to just physically open your hands up, turn the palms up, and give it a moment of surrender.
Thank you so much, Jarryd. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Of course, Lindsay, it was awesome talking with you.